We had several adults there to help out, and each of us kind of decided what we felt like needed to happen. We knew that Mom needed to be contacted, so I went to call Mom over the radio. I was trying to communicate to everybody that I was the one making the phone call to the mom. I knew the nurse had arrived and the officer was there and was treating the young man, so I felt that I could leave at that point to get a hold of Mom to make sure that Mom was communicated with. After I had gone back, they were performing CPR on this young man, so I continued to be in contact with Mom to let her know she would need to go to the hospital. And then I found the family school liaison to transfer that communication from Mom from myself to him, because he was going to go to the hospital to meet with her. I understood that the lunchroom needed supervision at that point, so I moved to the lunchroom because we had a pod full of kids that would not be able to return to class after lunch was over, and then received information from the principal to move those kids into the small gym and hold them while they were debriefing with the staff members from that pod and providing counseling and support.
And as the school counselor, I also heard over the walkie-talkie a level 3 call, like Mr. Mucky had said. And so the other counselor and I had said, along with a nurse. So with that being stated, we immediately went to the pod, and upon arrival, it was myself and the other counselor, the nurse, and the SRO who arrived at the same time, and to find the student on the floor. And so at that time, everybody kind of assessed the situation. At that time, we had made sure, has anybody called 911? We were walking to our front office to make sure 911 was called. At that time, they had, after assessing the situation, rolled the student over and had determined that he was not breathing on his own, and that is when they started resuscitation. Another staff member was sent to get the defibrillator machine and came back. And so during that time, everybody was right there performing CPR and just kind of on standby. The other counselor had run to make sure, was waiting for the paramedics in the front to lead them in to where we were. We had also, at that time, the paramedics were being sent around the back. And so at that time, we had luckily, some of the maintenance men in our building, and they were able to take the beam down to provide more room for the ambulance to bring in the stretcher. And so they were able to take over at that point, and Javen was then transported to the hospital. The emergency district crisis team was then called over, which is a team of counselors and administrators, to make sure the staff was okay and kind of debrief that situation, and then also on hand, the counselors, especially since myself as a counselor and the other counselor were involved, they were there for the students who needed support, who had witnessed it or had questions and things like that.
So how do you guys feel like everything went? Do you feel like we could have had stronger procedures or done things more streamlined during that time so things felt like they were more under control?
I'll start. I think the first thing that comes to mind is we top out at a level 3, like I mentioned earlier, and when we go there, it's usually an altercation between students, and so definitely putting something in place that alerts us as we arrive on scene that maybe some outside individuals need to be contacted, whether that's paramedics or firefighters. Maybe putting that additional level in place would definitely need that.
Yes, because to follow up with that, when we had gotten to the room and determined 911 needed to be called, which I agree is probably a procedure in place to know that that should be immediate, then the communication with the front office was kind of difficult because they were not understanding what was going on. So definitely, I would agree that that was something that we should improve.
So from that conversation, what we have put in place when teachers call for administrative or for escorts to their room, they'll say that it's a medical emergency. Medically, something has happened where the nurse needs to also attend, so there's not a delay waiting for administrators to make the call for the nurse to get there. So we've changed the way we call for people to come, that the nurse can be notified immediately.
We also did a quick synopsis on where our AED was located in our building, just to kind of refresh people who also are new to the building. That should be something that we will probably put in place, and we'll discuss multiple times over the school year rather than just in a brief setting at the beginning of the school year.
A training was provided to staff where the AED machine is located and the basics of using it. I knew that myself, I did not know exactly where the AED machine was, and when you're panicking, I think I could have thought of it, but if you're in a panic situation, that's not the time to try to remember something. So it is something that will be part of annual staff training so everybody knows the location of that device.
One other item that should probably be looked at was we were trying to communicate with the front office to see any existing medical conditions that the student had so we could better assess the situation. And I'm not sure what happened along those lines, if the office was not able to pull up that information. So I know for myself I had to run with the nurse back to the office and try to radio to the team that was helping the student what the medical condition current ones were that we had on file. So that was another thing that should probably be addressed, a better way to kind of have more access to, I guess, medical records for those when the nurse is tied up, so, in the situation.
I think I would have also felt better in that situation if we could have come together just very quickly and said what needs to be done and made assignments. I think we all took on a responsibility and it worked out very well. But I think that if we had stopped and just come together once we knew the student was being cared for and said what needs to be done, I'll take the phone call, you go look at medical records, you go meet the ambulance. I mean, we all did those things, but I think I would have felt better at that time knowing those things were covered. Is somebody in the lunchroom, that type of thing. So that is what we typically do after we have a crisis situation or a significant situation in the building, to make sure that our procedures are strong and we put things in place. I really appreciate you guys helping out today. You're famous now, so we'll get autographs later. Thanks.
Thank you.